Man, some of my friends ain't even want to go to college for real. They just wanted to make money straight up the back after high school. That was what's up.
If you don't get an education, you are doomed either to do something that's illegal to make money, or you're doomed to die at a very early age. And that's the reality.
Is a good job still the big payoff for spending 4+ years in higher education? I'll talk to one of the leading educators in the country to find out if academic success is relevant in today's job market. Up next on Off the Cuff with Karen Gibbs. Welcome to Off the Cuff with Karen Gibbs. With college tuition costs climbing at a record pace, many high school students must decide whether to invest in a college degree or dive right into an entry-level job. Whether driven by economics or personal preference, this decision can have a major impact on the course of your professional career as well as your personal life. To help us understand and navigate this complex decision, I invited one of the country's leading educators, Dr. Freeman H. Hrabowski III. Many of you know him as the president of University of Maryland, Baltimore County, or UMBC. In 2008, he was named one of America's best leaders by U.S. News and World Report, which in both 2009 and 2010 ranked UMBC the #1 up-and-coming university in the nation and among the top colleges and universities in the nation for commitment to undergraduate teaching. In 2009, Time magazine named him one of America's 10 best college presidents. But Freeman is also an accomplished scholar, father, and author, penning such books as Beating the Odds, Raising Academically Successful African American Males, and co-authoring the article African American Fathers of High Achieving Sons. But perhaps his proudest accomplishment is the highly successful Meyerhoff program for aspiring African American scientists and engineers. Freeman, welcome to Off the Cuff.
Thank you, Karen. Great to be here.
Now, I know as a college president, you're really into education, but tell people now how important a college education is now.
Sure. I think college education, the idea of getting post-secondary learning is more important than ever. The president has said that we want to go to 55% of America's young people having college degrees. Now, he means both 2-year degrees and 4-year degrees. But the idea of getting education beyond high school is critical because most of the jobs will require more than a high school education. Very important.
Is there a correlation now between the salary you get and the education level?
Oh, yeah. Students who get this extra education get tens of thousands of dollars more, not just in beginning, but as time goes on. They move up the ladder, they get more money, they're able to do more in supporting their families when they have post-secondary education.
When should students start thinking about college?
I would say it's important to start thinking about college when you're in kindergarten. I want parents talking to children when they're 3 and 4 years old, saying you're going to college one day, you are brilliant, you can do this. And so all of their high school, elementary, middle, and high school years, they should be learning more about college. And they should be getting examples of people who've gone to college and done well.
What types of decisions should go into that?
Right. The most important is to get students to learn to read well, to learn something about mathematics, to start learning about technology, to know how to work hard, very important. And then as time goes on, as students getting into high school, they need to learn how to take standardized tests. SAT, for example. These exams are important, and they're based on reading skills. I'm a math teacher by training, and I would tell you that if you give me a child who can read well, I can teach her to do story problems, word problems, and students need critical thinking skills. So working hard in school, taking the right courses, getting to algebra in middle school, learning about the college experience, going on campuses. I would suggest to families, take your children to campuses. Let them just walk around and dream about the possibilities. Very important.
Everybody has to have a dream.
Yeah.
What about trade schools, though? You see a lot of those advertised.
Yeah, there are a lot of great institutions that are not the traditional liberal arts institutions. I think some students will be much happier starting in experiences that involve more hands-on experiences, for example, and these are some great experiences. I often say many students will get 2-year certificates or 2-year AA degrees, get a good job, and later on say, I want to go back and get a degree in history or in English or whatever, but there should be some kind of path for every student. Very important.
Oh, you're talking about that path. Tell
Yeah.
me about this feeder system that you've talked about, because if you're thinking about college and
Yes.
kindergarten,
Yes.
you have to get the community and the
Yeah,
school system to
sure.
buy into this.
It takes a village to raise a child. We all need to be talking about the importance of students going on to college, and that means 2-year and 4-year institutions. And the skills that you need for one are the same as for the other. Whether you're going to be an auto mechanic or you're planning to be a doctor, you have to learn to read well. You know, if you look at people who are working with cars right now, they have to know more about computers than you could ever have imagined. They have to be able to read directions, to have critical thinking skills. So problem-solving skills will be important in whatever you do. But we want to get kids to aspire for all kinds of possibilities. And you do that by giving them examples of people who have succeeded. Having those role models talk about what they did in middle school, what they did in high school. And I can't say it enough. Learning to read well, to think critically, to solve math problems, and to work hard are the most critical skills of all.
Is the playing field level for men and women, boys and girls?
Well, it's interesting. Girls are not getting enough exposure to technology. If you look at most of the technology games, they're for boys. And so we see in college too few women of all races majoring in areas like computer science. For boys of all races, we see that fewer are going to college. And one of the reasons is a lot of the boys are bored. And the question is, how do we engage them in the work, use the technology, give them hands-on experiences? But regardless of race, we do see fewer boys going to college right now. So we need ways of encouraging both young men and young women to think about the possibilities of a college education. Very important in America.
How do we go down around breaking down some of the gender stereotypes,
Sure.
like women not being good with numbers, which
Right.
then steers them to, say, maybe home economics
Sure.
instead of, as you mentioned,
Sure.
technology?
Well, the good news is that many colleges, such as UMBC, are really working to get students who are majoring in engineering. We have women engineers who are working on the Baja competition for cars that race, for example. We've got a Center for Women in Information Technology that gets experts, young women who are excited about using technology in game development, for example, and perhaps game development for girls. And so we have to find those students who are majoring in math or biochemistry or engineering, who are women, and get them into the schools so that people can see them. We have to find young people of color, African Americans and others, who are doing well in biochemistry or in molecular biology. Let them go out into the churches, into the communities, and talk about the work. You know, it's exciting on my campus to see students of all races focused on the problems we face in society. Our students are working on issues involving anti-cancer strategies, for example. How do we make sure that we have enough scientists in our country? And that means having people of all races who understand the problems that different groups face.
How do you suggest a student identify their passion and then feed it into some sort of school of study?
Sure. I think, first of all, the student has to say, okay, what do I like studying in high school? And they need to talk to their teachers. Students need to talk to their teachers and ask them, how did you decide to become a teacher of English or a teacher of chemistry? And then secondly, we need to understand that if we can get students reading, they can use those reading skills in many majors. A lot of our students are majoring in history or in philosophy, and they plan to become lawyers because they enjoy discussing ideas, or they want to help the poor and they want to deal with social justice. And so whether it's in science and technology or in the humanities and social sciences, the question is, how do students want to help other people? Some people are good at arguing on behalf of others. Other people are good at listening to people. They may be interested in psychology or counseling. Other people want to help with healthcare issues. I mean, we have people who are sicker than ever. And so health disparities is a big area. So a lot of students are majoring in public health, looking at ways of getting into communities and helping families and children learn what they can do to improve their health. So giving students a chance to get involved in internships is really important. Our students, thousands, are involved in the community. Some are working with kids in the schools. Others are working in social work or psychology, learning how to become counselors. Others are working in hospitals, learning that they can deal with seeing blood everywhere, all right? Others are looking and using organs from the body to understand exactly how the human body functions as they work in biology. So it depends on what the person has an interest in, but it also depends on the person's view of herself. If she sees herself as a future doctor, what does that mean? It's not enough to say, I like people. You've got to be willing to deal with the blood. You have to be willing to deal with the pain and the suffering and all those kinds of issues. But giving students a chance to get involved and see how medicine makes a difference in the lives of people, or to see how a teacher can change a child's life, and working in that classroom and seeing the difference that a teacher can make can get a student thinking, this is what I want to do. We want people to be passionate about their careers.
Freeman, hold that thought because we want to come right back with some more Off the Cuff with Karen Gibbs.
I took a trip to Elkhart, Indiana today. Elkhart's a place that has lost jobs faster than anywhere else in America. The people who've lost them have no idea what to do or who to turn to. In fact, local TV stations have started running public service announcements that tell people where to find food banks, even as the food banks don't have enough to meet the demand.
I feel I have the same opportunities in college as any guy, and I'm majoring in business management, and that's my dream.
Welcome back to Off the Cuff with Karen Gibbs and my very special guest, Dr. Freeman H. Hrabowski III. Today's topic affects millions of young adults every year, whether to pursue a college degree or dive right into the job market. Before we continue our discussion, I want to share with you a few statistics. According to Focus.com's research, the top paying college degrees are computer science and various engineering fields, including computers, petroleum and chemical, and mining. And conversely, some of the worst paying college degrees include social work, elementary education, theology, music, and Spanish. And here's the list of top paying jobs without a college degree. They include network administrator, police officer, court reporter, clinical lab technician, and HVAC installer. Well, Freeman, what are some of the alternatives to pursuing higher education if you choose not to be, say, an engineer or...
Karen, you know, I have to say this first because I'm always asking at commencement, all the people who are going to be teachers to stand. I don't think there's anything more noble than being a teacher. And when we see these studies that say, well, teachers don't make as much money, of course, we want teachers to make more money. But I know a lot of teachers, a lot of social workers who know how to use the money they make, and they live good lives. But even more important, they are changing lives. I want young people to be passionate about helping children, of working in a school. I want students in school to thank their teachers for what they do every day because they could go out, it's true, and make more money. They do what they do because they care about children. And we in this country have to look at our values. There should be nothing in our lives more noble than helping other people and helping our children. So teachers and social workers and nurses and people who are working to help kids and families should be revered. We've got to think about that. Now, with that said, I would say this. The idea of working and going to school at the same time is very, very possible for many people. And so even if a student says, well, I want to get some job experience, they could be taking classes, either part-time or full-time, while working. And so getting skills in technology can be very helpful. You're right, you don't have to have a college degree to get a good job in technology. But I would say having the right attitude, customer service is very important. How many times do we come up to a counter and see somebody who's talking on the phone?
Yeah.
Or who is not pleasant when talking to us? Having the right attitude. How are you today, sir? Thank you very much. Being courteous, these kinds of skills that deal with the way you just greet people will be very important. When a person goes to an interview, people want to know, is this somebody I'd like representing my company? Is this somebody who knows how to treat customers? And so having the ability to speak well, to write well, these are skills you'll need whether you start in college the first day or you wait a year or two after high school. I would encourage every high school student, though, even while working, to be in school, either a 2-year or a 4-year institution.
Do they understand the sacrifice that is necessary to have a job and go to school and maybe even deal with a family?
Yeah, and that's the other part. You know, there are actually 54 million Americans who started college and never graduated. 54 million. And many will ask me, people will send me emails, am I too old to go to college? I'm 48 years old. No, there are people of all ages in colleges, at UMBC and other places, and never too old to come back. And people who've reared children, who've raised their children, quite frankly, are well prepared to come back to college. Because if you can raise a child, if you can help a child to develop, you can do anything. And so they have the skills they need, they have the discipline they need, they know why they are there, and they will be just fine. So I would encourage people to return to college to finish either the 2-year or the 4-year degree. And then I would say for younger people, we have to give them examples of other young people who are going to school and working and sometimes helping take care of family and are doing it all. It's possible to do all three. They need support, but I would also say universities are working to be more flexible. On my campus, you have more and more opportunities for hybrid courses, we call them. The combination of some of the work online, some of the work in person, and that gives more flexibility to what's possible.
Give us some advice on how to determine not only whether we're going to go after an associate's degree, whether we're going to go after a liberal arts degree, whether we should attend a public or a private college.
Sure. I would say students need to go around to different kinds of institutions. They need to look at the amount of money they have, and they need to apply for financial aid to see how much money they can get, and then look at the cost of a particular institution in comparison to the money they can generate through loans or through financial aid. There is financial aid available. There are scholarship programs for people in certain majors. There are a number of people who will decide to take scholarships and then go into the military. A number of my students do that, and they can get the full education paid for. So there are all kinds of opportunities for additional financial support, but they need to look at the relationship between the cost of the place and the amount of money they have to spend, number one. Number two, they can decide whether they want a community college first to see how it goes, or a 4-year institution, and whether it's public or private. You have all kinds of programs in both types. But most important, I would say, students should go to institutions, talk to the people in admissions and financial aid, get a feel for the place, see how they are treated, ask them about the kind of support they will get if they come there, and you get a gut level feeling in addition to the analysis of the data, and then you say, okay, this is the place for me. That's what happens.
You opened the door to financial aid, and I
Yeah.
have to ask you about the Meyerhoff Scholars Program. Tell me about that.
The Meyerhoff program began for African American males, and then it worked, it introduced African American females to the program, and now students of all races, though the 60% are students of color. The program is designed to prepare people to be the best researchers in science, in medicine, and engineering anywhere in the world, regardless of race. It is really, and Robert and Jane Meyerhoff, philanthropists, the late Jane Meyerhoff, decided to help young black males. We started that way 20 years ago. And now UMBC leads the country among predominantly white universities in sending blacks on who complete PhDs and MD PhDs in science and engineering. And so it is a brand. It's a brand for excellence and inclusiveness. And so on our campus, we have African American, Hispanic, Asian, and white Meyerhoffs. They all have an interest in the question of underrepresentation. How do we increase the numbers of people of color who get involved in science, who are involved in medicine and in engineering? It's a phenomenal program, and it works so well because the faculty at UMBC care about these students as they care about students in general.
Freeman, how do we reach those youth that feel that education is whack, it is for the nerds, they can do better on their own out in the street? How do we get to them?
You know, we have a program called the Choice Program, which brings young children, often boys of color, low-income kids in general, to campus because they've committed some kind of nonviolent crime. And we supervise these kids 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We make sure they're up in the morning, on campus in the evenings. We take them home. And what makes the difference is giving them a chance to see young people who look like themselves, who are in college, who can talk to them. A 19-year-old can be much more influential when talking to a 12-year-old than somebody who's 40, 50, 60 years old. Children will listen to teenagers and to 20-year-olds more quickly than they will to their own parents. And so when you can get people in college, young college students saying, this is the best way, this will make the difference, I'm planning to become a business person, you know, all of a sudden the kid says, he does that, maybe I can do that too. And so I would be encouraging children and parents of children to get those kids in front of college students. Let them see what college students say. And then compare what college students say to people who are out on the streets who don't have anything to do. That's the other point. What is the option? I mean, I'm very straightforward with young people. If you don't get an education, you are doomed either to do something that's illegal to make money, or you're doomed to die at a very early age. And that's the reality. Because the worst thing a child can do is get involved in drugs or to do something illegal because you're going to prison. And so having students understand those alternatives. There's no alternative to education that's positive. And we have to be straightforward with kids about that. We've got to find a way to help them understand that they're going to need some skills to get a good job.
Freeman, thank you. I'm talking with Freeman Hrabowski. More with our discussion in a short moment. We'll be right back.
So, Malcolm, you do know that energy savers last 6 times longer than ordinary light bulbs.
This isn't my room. It's Baron Davis's.
Baron Davis, the basketball player? This is his room?
Yep.
Interesting, because we have Baron Davis right here. Baron, do you live here?
No.
I don't mean that, Baron Davis.
Millions of kids are using their energy wisely. What's your excuse?
When I hear someone my age talking about not going to college because it's stupid or it just doesn't make any sense. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me because college provides enormous opportunities to learn how to work with people, opportunities to land jobs after college that'll pay you a lot more than, not going to college.
We're back with Dr. Freeman Hrabowski and continuing our off-the-cuff conversation on pursuing a college degree versus entering the job market. I think it's critical that we also talk about the changing job market and the new demand it has placed on institutions of higher learning and its students, and now more than ever, former students. Many former college graduates are going back to school seeking another degree to enable them to compete in today's job market. Freeman, how has this new trend altered the landscape?
Sure, there are certain broad areas that we all are talking about, intelligence and defense. Everybody, we know that, Homeland Security. So there are many jobs in cybersecurity and areas involving technology, but areas involving languages. We talked before, I heard you mention something about teaching Spanish. For example, there's so many children whose first language is Spanish. So having people who are teachers of English as a second language, these are all areas that will be very important because we've got this immigration into our country and we're trying to support these children. So intelligence and defense and relationships with other countries, all of those kinds of fields. And amazingly, students who are majoring in areas like political science, getting a chance to think about international relations will be very important. Similarly, the environment is a big area. And so energy, for example, and jobs in environmental policy on the one hand or environmental science on the other. People are majoring in areas that look at issues involving water. Water is going to be a critical factor in the lives of human beings. And so you'd be surprised how many courses are designed to think about those kinds of issues. And then the other big area, healthcare. People are always sick. And the fact is health disparities in our country, major issues. So public health, or thinking about a career in healthcare, whether it's as a nurse or to go into physical therapy or in pharmacy or medical technician, and there are jobs at all levels for people with post-secondary degrees that are 2-year degrees, technician jobs, to people. A lot of our students are going into med school, for example, or others are going to be dentists, for example. So you got all those healthcare areas. And then the other area that people don't think about enough from my perspective is human services.
Gosh, yes.
We do need more social workers. We need more teachers.
And those jobs can't be outsourced.
Oh no! You've got opportunities to change lives. That's the other part. And when somebody says, "Well, this job pays more than that," I always say to students, don't decide on a career based on how much money you're going to make, because I know people who make a lot of money and who are as poor as they've ever been. It's not always how much money you make, it's how you use the money you do make. It's your values. It's how you spend the money you make. You see, that's just as important. And so when you get a reasonable job and you make a reasonable salary, if you take your time, you'll be fine financially. And the better you are at your job, the more opportunities you're going to get. That's the other point. People will have several careers in their lifetime. They may start off in one career, but you move on, it changes all the time. What's important is to do your best in school, and then after you graduate, to do your best on that job. We have to teach the right skills. Being on time, being willing, showing up, being there. and staying. Don't just leave as soon as the job is over. I mean, show extra initiative, ask good questions, amazingly learn how to work in a group. It's not enough to make A's. You want to do well in school, but you have to be able to work with people, knowing how to smile, how to interact with people. You know, this customer service is going to be important on so many different levels, and we've become so technology focused that sometimes we forget the human interaction, which is going to be very important. And the other part is, I always say to people, think about the possibilities of connecting areas. So we have students at UMBC who will connect philosophy and biochemistry. They're looking at the ethics of medicine, for example, or the ethical issues involving technology. How is technology changing the way we interact as human beings, you see? And so there are ways of connecting majors. Many more students are not just a double major, but connecting majors so they can see the world in a different way.
We focused a lot of this discussion on students coming up through secondary education into college. Now we've got, say, 50 plus citizens that are out of work and not in tune with some of the technological changes. We also have veterans coming back from serving our country. What are the opportunities that are available to them? What advice would you give to them?
Great. You know, Maryland is very fortunate. We've got a governor and legislature who really are deciding to put as much as they can into higher education and to invest in community colleges and four-year institutions. It makes a big difference. And one of the areas involves veterans. You know, our lieutenant governor is a veteran himself, and he's had the universities come together to look at how we can make sure we're supportive of veterans when they come back. And so on all our campuses now, we have special support services designed to say to veterans, come on back. We are so proud of you and what you did for our country. Let's see how we can be supportive of you. And you'll find that, and they can go to any admissions office and get to the Veterans Affairs area and get that support. Now, for students in general, what you'll find is that universities now understand we must do much more to be flexible and to understand time issues involved with people who are adults, who have families to raise, who are working, or who are trying to find a job. And that's the most important thing of all. For us at UMBC, we are constantly focused in our career services area, in our Shriver Center for Internships, on connecting students to jobs. And that's regardless of major. If you're majoring in humanities or whatever the area, how do you get people connected in marketing and sales and human relations, human resources? Amazing how many jobs there are out there, especially in this Baltimore-Washington corridor. You've got all the government agencies. You've got all the federal and state places, and you've got all the companies. And so the important thing is to get people in front of people to say, here's my brand. This is what I bring to the table. I can work with people. I can speak well. I can write well. I'll do what you need me to do. Amazingly, students can get great jobs. This is the time for that. It's attitude that's more important than anything else.
Attitude, the way you present yourself,
that's exactly
and
right.
Maintaining that competitive edge on a global platform.
Because we've got people from all over the world competing for those jobs. You know, and what's amazing to me is that I'm always saying to people, you don't have time to be a victim. Let's have that right attitude, and when you lose that job, just start networking. Networking is very important. The more people you meet, the more interviews you go on, the greater the probability you'll find the right position. Very important.
Well, Freeman, last question. What are the new challenges and issues for you personally and at UMBC?
Well, you know, for me personally, I plan to just keep exercising and being as positive, enjoying my family, and most important, really being inspired by my students at UMBC. Students inspire me. UMBC is doing so well. We've got 70 companies, biotech and IT companies, on campus. We have students from 150 countries on campus, and these students give us both international and domestic diversity. We're getting national and international visibility. I've had the head of the Korean Institute of Technology on campus looking at ways of partnering. I've had the head of the research center from the Indian Institute of Technology. So the idea is people from all over the world are coming to see how we connect, how we get students going back and forth. We have students who are working with faculty in India in computer science with IBM. And so it is a fascinating place that's looking at the world broadly, not only from technology perspectives, but from the perspective of arts and humanities. If you come on our campus right now, you'll see the construction of a major arts and humanities facility that really signifies just how important it is to have everyone getting this liberal education, learning to think broadly and to dream about the possibilities.
And how have you dealt with the constricting financial budget situation, Steve?
When times are tough, the tough get going. And UMBC is a place with a lot of tough people. We have been determined to generate revenues, to support students, to focus on really what's important on a campus. What's important should be the students. I say look at the student to your left, look at the student to your right. To the new students, I say our goal is to make sure all three of you graduate. And if you don't, we fail, and we don't plan to fail. Our UMBC students are doing well, and they're getting jobs. And I tell families this one point. When UMBC students graduate, we want to make sure they don't have to come home and live with you. Parents love that message.
It brings it home. Freeman, thank you for stopping by.
Thank you, Karen. This is great. Thank you.
Whether you're encouraged by your employer or pursuing your own passion, the right college degree program can amplify your work experience. By cultivating your interest and focusing on the things you love to do, you can build an exciting, evolving, and rewarding career. I'd like to thank my guest, Dr. Freeman Hrabowski, for sharing his wonderful insights. And I invite you to join me next time for more candid conversations on Off the Cuff with Karen Gibbs.